Hello and welcome along to episode 323 of the Total Saints podcast, your home for all things Southampton Football Club. Before we start, a huge thank you to our TSP Patreon community, because we couldn't make the show each week without you. It's been a very, very long season, one we are all glad to see the back of, but your support has been incredible. So coming up on what should be the last episode of the season, we'll take a look back at the final game of the season as second place Arsenal were at St Mary's. If we try and work out what went wrong this year, we're going to be here all week, but we'll see if we can make some sense of it all. We'll also look ahead to the summer and life under new manager Will Still. Plus, Saints legend Franny Benali will be giving us his thoughts on the season. So my name's Martin Stark. Joining me this week, Steve Grant, who's the owner of Saints Web, Alfie House is senior Southampton reporter for the Daily Echo, and Glenn Delacour is writer of the blog League One -10. So the big news today is that we have a new manager, Will Still, joining from French club Lens on a 3-year deal. He was in the stands today watching the Arsenal game, and we spoke at length about his appointment on the pod last week. So do catch up with that if you haven't done so already. We've also got a new interview with the journalist who covers French football and knows a bit or two about Still. So you can find that video on our YouTube channel, and that interview will be included in the audio version of the podcast, which will be available tomorrow morning. Alfie, we did say that they were hoping to have him announced today. We weren't sure whether that was going to be the case or not, but it turns out they obviously managed to get it done and get it over the line in time.
Yeah, I think obviously, Steve, we spoke about it last week, didn't we? And we weren't 100% sure if that would be able to happen, really, given how quick of a turnaround it was. But yeah, it sounds like sort of Saturday morning it broke that it was all really officially done and ready. And at that point, I'm pretty sure Will was in the training ground yesterday morning. Before he went to Wembley Stadium. He's had a busy week, by the way. He was at Trent Bridge on Friday. He was at Staplewood yesterday morning. He went to Wembley for the playoff final yesterday, and obviously now he's at St Mary's for this game as well. But I think we spoke about last week that it was important for the club to show fans that they had a direction, I guess. And after, like you said, a really long year of, and we'll get into it a bit more, but just sort of feeling like we lack clarity at times, not knowing where we're going to go and what's on. It's nice for the fans to see that he was there today. Didn't do a speech or anything, half-time appearance or anything like that. But, yeah, just in the ground and watched what I thought was a fairly decent performance from Saints.
Yeah, we'll get into the game in a minute, Steve. But do you think that was good to get him there today? It was kind of like a signal of that it all starts again now.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that kind of they are prepared, which is not something that has kind of often been associated, given how long if you bear in mind how long the Russell Martin appointment took 2 years ago. They were kind of left a little bit unprepared, I think, for the sort of legal wrangling that ended up following on that. So good that they've just decided, right, we're just going to pay the money and get it done this time around. And yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of quite good to have that little crossover, isn't it, of sort of out with the old and in with the new, and sort of almost like the sort of the two sort of entries on the sort of cuckoo clock, kind of crossing over as the clock strikes 4 o'clock. And yeah, I think, look, it's difficult job he's coming into, but I imagine certainly from the quotes, he's excited by it, and I mean, it's going to be a challenge. Let's make no bones about it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think.
We didn't really have any time to waste either, do we, Glenn? I think it's about 10 weeks until the season starts, with the Premier League finishing later and the Championship starting earlier.
No, I think it's important to get him in now. I mean, we said that we got relegated. When was it? 1st of April or something? Early April. So we've had a lot of time to use, and all that time can be used for is to prepare for next season. I think it's important to get him in before before the players will disappear off on holidays, because who knows, he might be able to talk to one or two of them and persuade them to stay if he does, if he says something really impressive, which is obviously you're never going to have the chance to do that if you come in after the season's finished. So yeah. Maybe that's been a little bit optimistic, but at least players that are weighing up whether to leave or not, they're making that decision with their eyes open. They know who the new manager is going to be now. So I don't think there's any downside of getting him in now. I mean, it's it's a little bit of a gamble, isn't it? I think I've heard Steve say several times that any manager that we get is a gamble. I guess the red flags, if you like, for Still, are the fact that he's never managed in the Championship, and despite being English, he's never managed over here. So, but the pedigree and what he's done in French football, and to a lesser extent Belgian football, has been it is impressive. It's mad that he's only 32. That is absolutely mad. Sorry, that will never not seem weird. Managers should be 50 plus. Yeah, but
I think that's what my biggest issue is, all told. I know that's the thing I've struggled to come to terms with.
Yeah, it's a bit odd, but players are getting younger and younger. I mean, we had another youngster in the team today. We've had very young players on the bench, and that's just the way football's going. And if you're good enough, you're old enough. And as Steve said, it's going to be a huge challenge for him, because we're not in a great spot as it stands, obviously, with finishing the season on 12 points. There'll be a lot, Russell Martin's old phrase about scar tissue. There's a lot of that. There's going to be a hell of a churn with regarding players leaving, and he's going to have to identify pretty quickly the areas that he wants to improve the squad in. So, we all knew we had to draw a line under this season at some point, and this is as you say, it's the first step into the new year.
Yeah, but Glenn, you mentioned the conversations and stuff. Who knows what they're talking about? But the players and families and staff, they all sort of stayed at St Mary's after the game today and had a kick around on the pitch, stuff like that. And Will Steele was there, and he was having conversations with the technical directors, Jack Stevens, a couple of other players and stuff like that. So it's sending everybody away, isn't it, with a clear direction of sort of who's in charge and what they might want. And, who knows what he spoke about, whether it's next season or not, probably not. Just hello, how are you? But it's good. I think it's good to have that face in the building already and have those early conversations.
Mm.
Well, we'll get on to the summer and all the work that he's got to do a little bit later in the pod. Let's start with the Arsenal game. He was in the stands, as were we. Arsenal were in town today for the final game of the season. It was a record-breaking 30th defeat of the season, 2-1 the final score. Yay! Steve, that was quite the patched-up team, especially at the back. So I was fearing the worst, and in a way, it was better than expected.
I mean, when that lineup came through, the first thing I did was went on Betfair and chucked 30 quid on Arsenal at Arsenal -3 on the handicap, because I just thought there's no way that we're not getting absolutely smashed here. And yet, fair play. That was excellent for the most part. Actually, I thought, given what we had available to ourselves, it was. I mean, I think there's probably a little bit of kind of stage management going on behind the scenes in terms of some players, probably a little bit of sort of asset management, if you like, not wanting players to get injured before they're due to be sold very soon. And yeah, as a result, that's kind of impacted the sort of roster that's available to Simon Rusk, which, I mean, you go into a game against Arsenal. Fortunately, they didn't have to win the game in order to secure Champions League football or anything like that. Because ultimately, if they had, they'd have put their full strength side out. I mean, more or less the team that finished the game, really. But no, I mean, the fact that they finished the game with their strongest 11 shows how much we kind of gave them a game and probably annoyed them. Because I mean, I must admit, I felt we were good value for a point. At the end of that, and it was annoying that it was a really good finish by Odegaard, but the way that it's far too easy for him to kind of work the space, and unfortunately, Wolf Smallbone has come into a game cold and hasn't been able to get up to the pace of it. It's something that we've leveled the criticism. We've leveled a lot at our substitutes this season, and once again, once those initial sort of subs were made, it was the sluggishness just wasn't, basically gave Arsenal too much of a foothold at that situation, when actually we'd not really let them create too much in the second half. A couple of balls into the box that we dealt with relative comfort, I thought, which as I say, given the makeup of that back four, when we looked at it at the start, you just think, "Oh God, this is going to be awful." But no, we were well organised, and I think the key was that made it obviously very different from the Manchester City game, was that we had at least 2 outlets. Stewart was an outlet where he could bring the ball down. And the problem was he was a little bit isolated most of the time. But also, Camaldine decided that last game of the season in the sun, and it was time for him to actually play a bit of football. And he was very, very good. Apart from, I mean, as usual, the end product. But
who coined the phrase today? Last day Sulemana. Was that George or was that you, Alfie? Somebody
final day, Cameron. I mean, we obviously all remember what happened last time, didn't we? The only time he's ever really taken a game by the balls was that final day against Liverpool in a 4-4 draw. So,
so he was kind of the key to us getting up the field and putting any pressure on Arsenal's defence, and did it pretty well, I thought, for the most part. There was some usual ropey decision making. Once he got into a good position, it was then, okay, do you keep going and try and take the shot yourself, or try and bring somebody else into play? Problem was, most of the time there wasn't really anybody to kind of bring into the game. Stewart was doing his best to keep up, but I mean, Suleiman, I would assume, is comfortably our fastest player.
Yeah.
It's obviously going to be very difficult for anybody else to catch up and help him out in the attack. But I thought there were promising signs there. I mean, obviously, ultimately, it's going to be redundant, isn't it? Because most of that team, you could quite easily see not being in the side when we kick off in the Championship in August. But one player I suspect will be there is Jay Robinson, who I thought was very good on his first start. I kind of wondered whether it was a mistake on the club's part to leave him out of the under-21s game on Thursday, given that was an actual final for us to win an actual trophy. But I think, in hindsight, having seen his performance out there today, where he didn't look remotely out of place against the team that's comfortably the second best in the country this season. So, yeah, I think fair enough on that one. And yeah, I think we were, for the most part, decent. Created chances. Ray has had 2 or 3 decent saves to make, and obviously we've pinched the. Stopped him getting the Golden Glove, I think, or at least stopped him having it outright.
Tied, I think. Yeah.
So that's another trophy that Arsenal haven't won fully.
Glenn, it was interesting to see the approach. It was obviously there were a few players that weren't picked because we're not going to be seeing them again, and then you've got one that we know that is definitely going to be off. Starts in goal and he's the captain. So it was kind of, for me, it was a bit odd. Obviously, no Dibbling either. So do we think he's off as well? It was a strange mix across the team.
You can go full conspiracy theory on it. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter why they weren't playing. But yeah, I do wonder how injured some of these players are. I accept Harwood-Bellis was injured from last weekend. Walker Peters, I don't think is injured.
Well, he's ill, apparently. He's been ill for 3 weeks now.
Yeah, rubbish. I suggest that Bednarek is not injured either. Tyler Dibbling, not convinced.
Not convinced either.
Who else was missing? Oh, Stevens has busted his arm, and that's fair enough. We'll let him off that one.
And it is unfortunate that we are having this discussion where ordinarily, if we just had loads of players out injured, it'd be like, well, okay, it's just an injury crisis and we manage it. But the fact that we frankly don't trust them.
Yeah, you question the attitude.
It's not a good sign.
You question the attitude, and the 2 players who are probably going to be leaving, and the 2 whose attitudes you 100% trust are Aaron Ramsdale and Matheus Fernandes, who both played. So, yeah, it depends how cynical you want to be about it. But the bottom line is they weren't available, and like Steve, I saw that starting lineup in defence in particular, and you're looking down the list of names trying to work out who the hell's going to play where, and.
Did you have to remind yourself who Charlie Taylor was? Because I did when I saw Taylor on the thing.
It's a funny one, Charlie Taylor, because the bottom line is 3 managers have had him and not picked him. Now, whatever the faults of those 3 managers, if 3 managers have had you and decided you're not worth a place, even in the squad, most of the time, then there's clearly an issue there. Apart from the Brentford game when he was absolutely embarrassing and just followed Mbeumo around the pitch trying to sort out Uric's man-for-man marking thing, I don't actually think he's been that bad. He's actually solid. And for the first 10 minutes today, I thought he was trying to play left back, and him and Wellington were kind of waving at each other like he was supposed to be where. After that, he settled down, and I thought he did okay. The main surprise for me was that Sugawara wasn't completely dreadful, because the guy cannot defend at all, but he obviously can when he concentrates. I think it helped when Arsenal swapped over Martinelli for Raheem Sterling, and Raheem Sterling played down the left, and that seemed to help Sugawara, because even though he's got 82 caps for England, Sterling's confidence is just gone completely. He's just an absolute shadow of the player he was, and that seemed to help Sugawara as well. I thought Nathan Wood did pretty well. He was suddenly thrust in as almost the leader of the defence, wasn't he? He's the most experienced central defender out there, and I thought he had one of his good games. So yeah, for all these guys who either were injured or couldn't be bothered to play today, some lads came in and did quite well in front of the new manager. And who knows? I wouldn't necessarily want any of those three in the team next season, but it's Will Steele's choice to make, isn't it? So Joe Robinson getting a game again. He's a little bit lightweight, of course he is, because he's only 18 or whatever. But I thought he was good, and it was his shot that led to the corner, which led to the goal. So there was some good stuff out there. But yeah, I must admit, when I saw the team to start with, it was like, my word, what is that? I think you'd have got long odds on having that as your back four at any point this season. But the other thing that helped, of course, is that you had the proper central midfield in there. And I thought both Downs and Leslie, I thought they played really well. You had Fernandez.
Leslie's another one, though, isn't it? If you're picking players that are going to be here next season, then he's not going to be. Not him. Yeah,
no, he's not going to be. But I thought he had another good game, and the whole thing raised a few. The whole game raised a few sort of what ifs for me. What if we played four at the back all season? What if Leslie and Flynn had been picked as the central midfield all season with Fernandez? What if we didn't mess around so much at the back when Russell Martin was there, and we just cleared the ball when we had to? I think we still would have gone down, but it wouldn't have been as embarrassingly dreadful as it has been.
Oh, we'd have been 25 points at least.
Yeah, just through doing the obvious things that we should have been doing, instead of trying to be super clever with playing suicide ball out from the back or man-for-man marking all over the pitch, or this super conservative approach that Simon Rusk's got, which is basically as many defenders as he can, and that's what killed us at the end of the game, because we were fine. He had to take Leslie off because he got injured, but when he did that, he brought.
They took their time though, didn't they? The way I thought we're going to concede a goal here while they're getting the sub ready again.
They brought on Kay Sander and went to three at the back. And the trouble, the second goal happened for, one, we changed the formation. Two, Flynn Downs, if he's paired with Will Smallbone, which he was after that substitution was made, he can't go forward. He has to stop and defend. And he was going forward attacking. We gave the attack broke down, and we gave away a free kick or something.
And then Arsenal, an absolute nonsense free kick.
Yeah.
Almost as ridiculous as the one that Man City got from Dibbling's murdering of Guardiola.
Yeah,
it was absolutely ludicrous. I don't know what it is with linesmen and that corner of the ground, and just giving utter nonsense to opposition sides for no legitimate reason. Absolute scandal.
Yeah, but once they got up the pitch, Will was training cone, wasn't he? And Odegaard just walked around him and scored. And you've got to take a foul there. You've got if you can't win the ball, or we can't shove him off the ball, you've got to foul him. You can't just let him walk around you and have a free shot from 18 yards. So
he did get the wrath of Aaron Ramsdale, though, didn't he? Ramsdale was not happy.
Well, deservedly so, because Ramsdale's pulled off another couple of blinded saves yesterday. Today, like he's done all season. And to let in another crap goal through someone not doing their job in front of him is a tough one to take. But it's all over for Aaron now, and he can move on with our best wishes, I think.
He's free to go. Alfie, the last 8 games have been dreadful for pretty much everybody, apart from Ross Stewart. Everybody delighted today when he got that goal.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't scored since January 2023, which is, I think that's injury related only. Obviously, he's been injured since then. But it was a really nice goal, wasn't it? I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the winner of the corner, obviously Jay Robinson, because it was a sort of 5-minute spell where Jay was actually really dominating it. Actually, he won a free kick right outside the box a couple minutes before. Got his way through a few players, if I can actually speak, and had a shot and forced the corner. And then Ross Stewart's header is very good. It's a backwards header in a crowd of people, and what confidence that will give him for next season. You hope. I think he'll be really pleased that he's been in him out. I don't have the figures here, but he started 4 or 5 games, is he now? He's been involved in the squad consistently for Simon Rust's entire tenure. It's the longest time he's been fit since he got injured back in January 2023, like I said. And I asked Simon, if you had a striker like Ross Stewart in the Championship, would you be happy? And he said, well, of course you would. He's powerful, he's tall. We know Will Steele's going to put balls into the box. We know they're going to be strong on set pieces, and he's someone that you can play off. If he can sort of enjoy a summer, actually have a break, away from sort of the rehab for once, and come back in next season fit and firing, he could be really useful. Like the £10 million striker they actually paid for him. I mean, his record for Sunderland before they signed him: 10 goals in 13 Championship games, and he got 26 goals a season before that in League One, including the playoff final. He's a goal scorer, so hopefully that will give him confidence.
I don't know if you heard his interview with Adam Blackmore on the radio, where he basically said he just wants to do a pre-season.
Yeah,
he basically said he wants to do a pre-season. That would benefit him massively because he's always been playing catch up, hasn't he? Even when he's had these little moments of being fit, he's not going to be as fit as everyone else. So he's always going to be stressing and straining, and that's what probably causes him to break down. So hopefully, it'd be great for us and for him if he can obviously have a summer and then come back and really do the pre-season and hit the ground running next year.
Yeah, I think from the club's point of view, you obviously can't. You can never really guarantee that he's now going to play 40 games in a season. You can never guarantee that. So as a club, I would like them to reinforce in the striker area and make sure you've got somebody who plays like him and you have the profiles you need. But I really hope that I think he definitely can be a starting striker next season if he's fit and if he's firing, he really can be. So yeah, as long as the club are sort of aware that there's no guarantees with him at this point, I think it's really exciting.
We saw our final VAR calls for a while, Steve. One was the offside, the other was the handball in the box from Declan Rice. Have you seen that back? What did you make of that? That would have been
the offside. I've seen the highlights back, and yeah, absolutely fine. It looked miles offside in real time, but when you freeze it, he's clearly timed it well, unfortunately. But the handball, I mean, that is just an absolutely disgraceful decision. His arm is clearly way out by his side. The ball hits his arm, and he brings it back in as a reflex. Now, I don't know what the referee saw in real time to wave it away. It looked, I mean, obviously I'm down the other end, but it looked like the referee had quite a good view of it. But having then seen it back on the video, I'm just done with these officials just decided can't be asked to actually get involved in this. I don't want to overrule my mate. Just do. The
check was over very quickly. It didn't take long.
No, but it's just like, do your jobs. It's a clear handball, and you could see that Declan Rice was absolutely pissing himself laughing that he's got away with one.
Because he starts off with his hands behind his back, doesn't he? If you've seen it, and then his arm's
kind of out here.
Yeah,
and it's hit him flush on the wrist, and he's kind of then pulled it in, but it's still clearly a handball.
Just playing devil's advocate for a second, might it not have come off his sort of slid off his chest first?
That was my only thinking. I need to see it again, so I haven't seen it. But my only thinking was, did it brush his chest first? At which one it wouldn't be a handball. But I know I haven't seen it close enough to know.
No, I mean that was at my end of the pitch, and my first instinct was that's handball, because you can always tell by the way you could tell it had hit a hand because of the way the ball sort of came off, because it takes so much pace off it when it hits a hand.
And you had 9 players running at the referee. It's like we haven't done that all season.
That was good to see. I like that. It looked like they cared.
It was long overdue, frankly. I mean, we don't put enough pressure on referees. We don't do those sort of dark art things that win you influence in games. We're too weak-willed. We're too nice, and as a result, referees just think, well, if they're not appealing, I'm not going to give them anything. And yeah, I mean, you need all the help you can get at this level of the game. And yeah, I mean, once again, we've been absolutely stiffed. But I mean, let's be honest, in the Championship, referee sees that. If he doesn't give it, then you're kind of done. You've got no recourse.
Yeah.
But you would like to think that that a referee with actual eyes would give it next time.
Am I right in saying we have got through the season without scoring a penalty, haven't we? We had one missed, and then did we score a rebound?
Two misses.
That's incredible.
Two misses.
Two misses. Archer and Armstrong. Armstrong scored the rebound.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who would have been on pens today, but blimey, I wouldn't have fancied that.
Stewart, I reckon.
The guy at half time who managed to avoid slipping over and hit the cross and did actually win the crossbar challenge.
What a prize, by the way! A Norwegian Force cruise, like a genuinely good half-time.
Yeah,
prize.
and that's like what, 2-3 grand worth of prize.
Yeah,
That's brilliant.
fair play. Yeah.
Save the best to last.
One thing on the pitch, right? We saw 4 or 5 players slipping over constantly in the first half. So then at half time we spent the entire half watering the pitch. What are we doing? Why is that kind of seen as a sensible thing to do? I mean, maybe players need to get longer studs, but then you run the risk of more knee injuries and that sort of thing. So if the pitch is already slippery, why make it more so? I just don't understand that.
Yeah. It was the first time this season I've actually agreed with the miserable sod that's got a season ticket behind me. And it's taken until the last game for me to actually do you know what? Maybe there's something in that about the pitch. Last week, Ross Stewart won Player of the Week, which is pretty cool. There's a shout that he might be in for it again this week. Going to go around and get some names. Steve, any standouts for you?
Jay Robinson. Very, very good. Given that he's a youngster with basically no senior experience. I mean, as Alfie said, he had that 5-10 minute spell at the start of the second half where he was running the game, and you just think, wow, I mean, this is something. It was kind of not dissimilar to Tyler Dibbling, I think, when he first kind of was getting starts, like that Man United first half an hour where he ran Diogo Dalot silly. It was kind of that in terms of the impact on the game, and yet Robinson's work was all that good work was through the middle, like in a really congested part of the pitch, and he still managed to have the composure and the drive to get into those areas, win a free kick on the edge of the area. He had that little slalom, which then eventually led to the shot that Raya saved at the near post, and then we scored from the resulting corner. Very, very promising, I thought, and I would, based on the last 2-3 weeks, I'd be very surprised if he's not starting games regularly for us in the Championship next season.
On Robinson, I mean, I remember now, maybe 18 months ago, I was speaking to somebody who works at the academy. I just sort of asking, who are the guys that you think are going to step up in the next couple of years, and he said Jay Robinson at the time, and this was before he only just sort of really started playing for the 21s. He was mainly playing for the 18s, but even then he wasn't dominating games in the way that sort of Tyler Dibbling was, when he sort of finished his academy career. But this person who worked for the academy just somehow seemed to know that Jay Robinson was going to be the one who then developed, and then over the course of the next 12 months, I mean, he's gone from that bloke who you rely on in the 21. So he's got a goal and 3 assists in 3 playoff games this season before obviously missing the final. But all year, scored winners in late winners and set up goals and just started to get that edge and dominate games. And he's obviously, Glenn stays still quite slight as a lad. But I'm sure that will come up over the summer. But I'll be picking the brains of that person in the academy for a long time to come, I think, because it was a great spot that, I wouldn't have said, oh, Jay's a bad player by any means, but I wouldn't have said he's the one that's going to, fly up through the ranks. And yeah, he'll definitely be in the squad next season. And, it's just up to him if he can force his way to stay there.
That was going to be my next question to you, Alfie. Is the person that picked him out still in the club? Is he still?
They are still in the club. Yeah. They are still in the club.
That's good. So I guess you'll echo Steve's comments. Anybody else you want to put up for Player of the Week?
Well, I usually pick someone who just outperforms what I expect them to do. So
Charlie
I
Taylor.
mean, you look at that back three, and to me, you could nominate Sugawara or Charlie Taylor or Nathan Wood. Any of those, I thought they all had good games. Out of the three, I'd probably say Sugawara, to be honest, because he's the one that. I mean, I've been very, very critical of him, and deservedly so, because he has been an absolutely shocking defender. No composure, no idea where anyone else is on the pitch. No real clue, but there was something about him today, whether he was concentrating more or whether they'd actually told him what he was actually like and told him to improve, because I do think we're too soft. I do wonder if half of these players have been told that what they've done this season is just not acceptable and not good enough. But for some reason, he put in a really good performance. So yeah, out of those, I'll take Sugawara. I mean, it's boring voting for Ramsdale, but he pulled off two or three really good saves to keep us in it.
We'll probably need to put him in, maybe with Ross Stewart as well. Anyone else, Alfie, or do you agree?
Yeah, Charlie Taylor would have been mine, just on pure surprise factor, like Glenn already said. I mean, my first vote would be Jay Robinson, but to add Charlie Taylor.
Okay. Anything else on Arsenal today? Or we done with that?
No, well, I thought it was a fairly positive way to end the season. At least I know it was a defeat, and it was obviously a late one again. And I don't know if anyone's done the maths on how many goals it's been in late games now, but I thought it was actually I thought it was actually quite a positive performance. And Simon Rusk has obviously been given a brief: get 2 points, don't get smashed, and that he has achieved that. Obviously, apart from the Aston Villa game, which was 3-0, but even then it was sort of 71 minutes. 0-0. Other than that, they haven't conceded more than 2 goals, I don't think. And from that doesn't sound like an amazing achievement, especially when you think about the fact that 2-0 Everton, 2-0 and Leicester were pretty low lights. But when you actually go back and you look at you getting smashed 4-5 every week, clearly he's hit that brief, to the minimum degree.
The other game we want to talk about this week, Alfie, actually, is the under-21s, the Man City game. So this was Thursday. The under-21s travelled to Manchester for the playoff final. 2-0 the final score, but absolutely nothing to be ashamed of for this team. We didn't think they would get through to the final, did we? And they did. And obviously Man City, best team in the land. And nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, that's Man City's 4th Premier League 2 title now in 5 years. Spurs won it last year with Will Lancashire and all those sorts of players, Mikey Moore. But Man City are an absolute, unit at the youth level. They hoover up the best players. Max Allane was one of them, started as centre-half for Man City. Obviously, they signed him from Saints for about £1 million when he was 15 or whatever it was a couple of years ago. Jamal Simpson-Pusey, who's played for the first team, played alongside him as well. And look, they lost 2-0. They deserved to lose. They could have performed better. But that wasn't really, the overriding feeling at the end, because they played against such a good team and it had been such a good run to get there. For me personally, it was a long day. Obviously, 4.5 hours up, 4.5 hours back on the same day. So you'd like to have seen a goal or something, but it was mainly just about supporting the lads after what's been a really, really good run. In that knockout stage, they played extra time twice and obviously won both of them. They recovered from going 3-0 up to 3-3 to still win a game 5-3 in the first round. Scored a load of goals. Don Ballard obviously getting a lot of them. And I think they should be really proud of themselves. It was the last game together for a lot of those guys. I'm thinking Lewis Payne, been at the club since he was 9 years old. He's now departing. Cam Bragg's been there for the same amount of time. He's got a year left in his contract, but who knows what he'll do next season. And Don Ballard's obviously another one. All 3 of them have been at the club since they were 9, 10 years old. Best mates. And that was their last game together as a group of lads. So, yeah, shame for them that it didn't get over the line, but nothing to be ashamed about at all. A really proud year. And I spoke to Andy Goldie after the match, and he said, look, when you think of football clubs who are, academy first, you sort of think of Benfica, you think of Ajax and Dinamo Zagreb, teams like that, but you also think of Southampton. I think a lot of people, when they hear the word Southampton, they think of the academy, and that hasn't been the case for Saints for the last sort of 10 years, but they believe they're getting back to that now, and that's evidenced by the fact that Tyler Diblin plays regularly this season. He could go on to be sold for a lot of money. Jay Robinson's in the first team; he'll be back there next year as well. So yeah, a lot of good work going on there, but well done to the lads, and unlucky.
It is a good feeling, isn't it, Glenn? It feels like the academy is, as Alfie says, they're kind of back on track a bit.
Yeah, it does, but it's another example, and I mean, might as well mention this now. We obviously, as most people know, went to the awards night during the week, and it was interesting because the vibe of it was, obviously talking about the things that had gone well, and the academy is obviously one of the things that has gone well. And it is good to have an area of the club that's kind of functioning as it should. There are other things behind the scenes, as we all know, with the revenue being generated off the pitch. It has all been good, but no, it is nice to see the under-21s and the under-18s, having players that look like they might ultimately sort of come through and do well at first team level, because that's got to be the aim. And there's always this sort of dual aim of players coming through, first team players, and also players being sold and making money for the club. Well, as a supporter, with the season we've just had, I'm not really interested in academy players going on and being sold. I'm more interested in can any of those under 21s who played the other day come through and and be in the squad for the first team next year, like it looks like Joe Robinson is going to be. But it's obviously a good thing to be getting through to finals and playing teams like Manchester City, because I can't remember what 2-3 years ago we just seemed to be, didn't we get relegated or something? One of the teams got relegated, and all the teams seemed to be down near the bottom of whatever league they were in. So it is undeniably a good thing to have things moving in the right direction. I just hope that there's something that can bridge that gap between age team football and actually getting them into the first team squad. It'd be interesting to see what the new manager's approach to that will be. Is he going to be the sort of manager who's happy to promote youth players, or is he going to be the sort who doesn't trust them? Because we've obviously had both in our time. Ronald Koeman legendarily didn't want to promote any youth players, and maybe he was right. I think with the exception of Harrison Reed, none of them sort of really went on and had sort of like a decent time in senior football. So yeah. But obviously, there's the raw tools there, under 21 and under 18 level, and hopefully the academy teams will continue to do well.
I mean, two things on that, Glenn. I mean, firstly, Will Steele is only 32 himself, and obviously became a manager because somebody took a chance on him when he was 24. If anybody's listened to the podcast he's been on, he was assistant at a club, and they basically, the chairman sacked the manager and rang him up and said, "Will, you're in charge." And he said, "Well, what's going on? I'm 24. There's people here who've played 100 games in Belgium. They're 50. Why am I in charge?" He went, "No, you're in charge." So, and look where he is now. So you'd like to think that with that sort of experience in life, that'll make you think, all right, well, if you take a chance on the right person, look what it can sort of lead to. And secondly, although I 100% get your point about as a fan, you don't ask if a player comes through and gets sold for money. I 100% understand that. But one of the reasons why Man City can seem to spend 100 million quid every single year, other than the fact they're probably, well, maybe allegedly, I should say, allegedly cheating, is because they sell youth players for 10, 15 million quid.
Yeah.
Dozens of them every single year. They're flogging players for 1 million, 2.5 million, 10 million. Obviously, sometimes it's more. Cole Palmer for 40. But that's one of the things that they do.
But they're a completely different boat to us.
Of course they've got
a first team that they got a first team that wins things. We've got a first team that's crap and got relegated with 12 points.
But one of the reasons they've got a first team that win things is because they can spend unlimited money. And one of the reasons they can spend unlimited money is because they sell a lot of players. That's one of the things that Jason Wilcox said to me when he first came in. That's one of the things that he wanted to do here. He wanted to make sure that if players couldn't play for Saints, they were still going for a few million quid here and there, rather than staying for years and years and years and then eventually going on a free, which obviously happens quite a lot in youth football. So there is that to consider.
Well, we'll look back at the season in just a moment. We'll look ahead to the summer as well. Just a quick call for any of the Patreons to check your direct messages. So if you're in the Francis Benali or the Mick Shallington, there's a message waiting for you in the Patreon inbox. I think most of you have got back to it, but one or two are still waiting on some replies. So if you're in the Francis Benali or the Mick Shallington, make sure you check your Patreon inbox. And it's the end of the season, so it is the last chance to get yourself some beer with 25% off. This season, we've got together with our friends at Steam Steamtown in Eastleigh, and we've got our very own Total Saints Pilsner, and you can get yourself a 25% discount on 24 cans of TSP by quoting this podcast to any of the staff on site at Steamtown. Now, the offer is only available in person at the pub. It doesn't work online. And if you've not been yet, it is a really good venue. So do go and check it out. It's just around the corner from the train station. So if you want to get 25% off 24 cans of TSP, just quote Total Saints Pod to any of the staff on site in Steamtown in Eastleigh. Now, I must say congratulations as well to everybody who took part in the Benali on Tour event, which was on this weekend in aid of the Saints Foundation, walking over 30 miles around the Isle of Wight, starting and finishing at St Mary's. I caught up with Franny last week, just before they set off. And of course, I had to get his thoughts on this miserable season.
Hasn't panned out how any of us would have hoped. I mean, it's a big question, but what's gone wrong in your eyes? What's not worked this year? Or is it a number of things?
Yeah, I mean, where do you start and how long do we have, Martin? It's you know, I don't think it's any one thing. I really don't. I mean, I'm closely connected with the club. It's been a huge part of my life, and I love having the connection that I have with the club now, with the foundation, with the club as an ambassador as well. It's tough for all of us. You know, everybody wants to do well. We want success, you know, whatever that might look like for us as a football club. But you can't deny this season's been a pretty dreadful one on the pitch, and it's a shame because there's so much hard work that is going on, not just by the team and the staff, but the various, you know, members of the team and you know, people at the club that are working hard off the pitch as well to make everything come together and be a success. And it's just a shame that results on the pitch this season haven't worked out. And as I say, it's not just any one reason. There's probably a combination of reasons and a number that have meant that we've only won those 2 games this season, which seems crazy really saying that. But you know, we've got to always look forward, learn from this. I think that's a big thing as well. You know, if you come through any adversity or difficult times, you know, you've got to learn lessons from that and reflect upon it. You know, it's all well and good looking back on the good times and enjoying those and thinking that they're going to be there forever. And football's not like that. Life's not like that. You know, everyone faces difficulties, setbacks. It's how you respond to it and how you learn from those lessons. So, you know, there'll be that time of reflection, I'm sure, once the final whistle blows against Arsenal on Sunday, and then it's very much working towards and thinking towards what can be a successful season next year.
A lot of people have said that we needed a Benali, a Dodd, a Letizia in the dressing room, you know, like a big character that could drive everybody on. Do you think those type of players still exist, or is it unfair on modern footballers to say? Often the accusation is that they don't care or they're not trying. Is that unfair?
They care, yeah. They care for sure. I mean, sometimes, you know, as supporters, it's easy to think that, you know, they don't care and they don't maybe show what we see or perceive as you know, wanting to be as successful, giving everything. But yeah, football is different and players are different now. But you know, I guess to label them sort of not wanting to be successful and give everything, you know, I just, you know, the name that pops in my head straight away would be our captain Jack Stevens. You know, you know, if there's somebody that gives everything, wants the best for the football club, wants to be successful, whatever that, you know, looks like, and the aim is, he typifies that. And you know, I know he comes in for quite a bit of criticism from some sections of the supporters. You know, I was there, I had it as a player, and I sort of I sympathise for that, but I know what Jack's like and what it means to him as well. And you know, so you need people like that within the dressing room, and not everybody's like that. Maybe Jack is a little bit sort of like the old school, you know, sort of kind of personalities and characters from my kind of era, as you mentioned with the other guys. And you know, you need people like that. Everybody's different, and the sport's different and the game's different now. But the one thing that remains is like the love and the passion that we all have for our football club, and that's just been typified, hasn't it, by the support that, you know, in a season that the supporters could very easily have turned on the team and on the club. They haven't done that. There might have been moments where there's been moans and groans, but And that would have been completely justified as well, given the season we've had. But on the whole, the support has been absolutely incredible. So I certainly hope that that what we see on the pitch next season is some kind of payback for the support they've had this year.
Well, the new manager looks like will be announced soon. What's he got to do first? Is it about morale or getting in and having a look under the bonnet?
I've always come back to this personally. I know there's a turnover of managers, and this one I think for the club and Sport Republic they've got to get this one right. It hasn't worked out, with some of the recent sort of appointments, and it's a big one. It's a big summer for us. There'll be coming and goings with players, I'm sure, and whoever comes in and is appointed as the manager, it's going to be a big job. But it's an exciting one, and hopefully one that will be a successful one next season. But I think I'd like to see someone in the position for some time that can hopefully build our way back to the Premier League and bring players through from the academy. We love that as players, and as somebody that's come through that pathway myself, I think that'd be great to see more of. So I just know everyone behind the scenes is working towards that. So whoever is going to be the person in the hot seat, I just wish them every success. I hope it's going to be the right person and somebody that can take all of us on an upwards journey.
Let's finish with the positive. What are the positives to take into next season? You're a positive guy, aren't you? And I know you've mentioned a few. What have we got to be excited about next year? Maybe the South Coast derbies?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's for sure. I know when the fixture lists are going to be coming out, every single person, whether you're a Saints fan, a Portsmouth fan, they're looking for those two fixtures in the calendar and when they're going to be along, because those are going to be the two biggest games for sure in so many ways. And it'd be a great opportunity to renew that rivalry again. But it's a bigger picture than that. It's not just two games against our rivals. It's the aim of bouncing back and how we respond to what has been a dreadful and shocking season for us this year. There's no two ways about it. It's you can't dress it up any other way of how it's been on the pitch. But there's an opportunity to hopefully put things right and bounce back. Whoever that's going to be at the club, in charge of the team or the players themselves. But yeah, it'll be great to all come together, enjoy a derby or two, and maybe renew some acquaintances with sort of former Saints connections as well, with people at other clubs as well. If you're reading between the lines at this moment in time with potential appointments and things. So yeah, there's a lot to be positive and a lot to look forward to. And I think once there's that little summer break a little bit, and we put this season completely behind us. As I say, learn from it. Don't forget it, because I think the hurt of a season like this is something that you can use as fuel to propel you forward in the future. So I like to think that what we learned and what we experienced through this season never leaves us, but we use that as fuel to sort of push us forward to bigger things and more success in the future. So that's how I look at it anyway.
Amazing. Well, listen, good luck with Benali on tour. We march home. We'll all be there at St Mary's on Sunday afternoon to welcome you back. I'll keep my fingers crossed for the weather. And I know you've got a great bunch of people. You're going to have a brilliant few days and you're going to raise a lot of money. So good luck and thanks, Franny.
Pleasure. Take care. All the best.
I saw them all coming back, actually. They didn't look too bad, which is fair. Glenn, Franny's always pretty positive. He's always quite optimistic. He's quite honest as well, I think, at times. And he kind of hit a few nails on the head there, didn't he, in terms of like what went wrong and what we need to sort of take forward. It's a big debate.
Yeah, and there's a long list. There's a long list of things. I mean, I think honesty and learning the lessons is the key to this. There's another thing that I picked up from the awards night, and a couple of people said it from the stage about we deserve to be a Premier League club. No, we don't, because we haven't looked after the one thing that underpins everything, which is the first team on the pitch in the Premier League. So we are where we deserve to be. We deserve to be in the Championship, and that is something that we really have to address, and people have to acknowledge that it's not, it's not worked. And Franny's exactly right in that regard, in that he's saying that we have to learn the lessons, and we can't just because we just finished a 38 game horror show, and we're now going to go into the Championship with the aim of getting back into the Premier League again. And there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that we're not, say for argument's sake, we win the playoff final next year. We'll be there thinking, here we go again. Hopefully the Will Still appointment works. And if it does, we've got a chance. Sport Republic and the ownership need to rebuild some confidence, or get some confidence from the fans in what they're doing. So yeah, there's lots of stuff to learn. I mean, what I always like about Franny is he's the voice of reason. He's not. I think because obviously he spent his entire life inside the professional football bubble, he's learned not to, that Nigel Atkins thing, don't get too high, don't get too low. And, and that's one of the things that always appeals to me about his viewpoint on things. It was interesting that he wouldn't be committed on, whether players weren't trying or not. I found that an interesting one. I think there's a lot of players that you can look at, and the players should certainly be looking at themselves and questioning whether they could have done more. I think there needs to be a little bit more of that, but I don't think there's probably quite a few of the modern professional player who doesn't do that, just to assume it's sort of like someone else's fault. But yeah, I think he's a good guy to get an opinion from. Is Franny, because of the level-headedness of everything that he says.
Was there a moment this season, Steve, or a result that kind of summed it all up for you? Was there one of the away games you went to, one of the home games, and you just thought, actually, this is not going to get any better?
Leicester
all of them
at home, maybe. Where, I mean that was kind of the archetype game at the start of the season, where we'd start a game quite well. And I mean, for the first hour in that game, we were brilliant. That game should have been done and dusted. 3-0 from an own goal, 4-0 from a penalty that's correctly given, and then the remaining 25 minutes of that game don't happen. And I mean, we wouldn't be sat here having a conversation about how we stayed up and were competitive across the season, and somehow managed to relegate Tottenham, who only got 38 points. But it's still, I think that is probably the game where the depth was so woefully exposed, because you were playing against a team theoretically on a level to you. One of the other promoted teams who were equally as out of depth as we turned out to be, and yet they're the ones that have managed to use their bench to great effect to come back and to somehow turn around and win a game they had absolutely no right to do so. So I think that one was probably the one where everyone's really pissed off. Everyone's just really frustrated that we've not managed to show the sort of mental fortitude that a little bit of, I mean, it's that thing, isn't it, of you get a little bit of sort of something goes against you, refereeing decision, a little bit of a setback in the game, and we just don't react well to it. And we've largely not reacted well all season. And actually, that was a criticism last season as well. In those two little runs of defeats, it was very similar in terms of the mental kind of questioning of senior players, whether there was that ability to kind of galvanize the rest of the team on the pitch. Because once you're sort of mid midway through the first half, midway through the second half, there's very little the manager can say unless you get one of those little breaks in play where you're then able to kind of get everybody over to the touchline and have a little mini team talk. There's very little a manager can do other than making substitutions. And we've seen how wonderfully effective our substitutions have been for the opposition. And
even today,
that's been the case, from the start of the season all the way through until the 89th minute of the 38th game, where one of our substitutes has weakened our midfield, and that's where they score from to deny us a point that we probably deserved. There's a lot to kind of pick out there. I think that Leicester game is probably the one that sticks in my mind as being probably the only one I've got kind of really angry about in terms of how did we let that slip in true Steven Gerrard style, of course.
I got another one. I'll just do it quickly. Bournemouth away.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I think a lot of people would say Bournemouth away, wouldn't they?
Yeah, because that was the game where Russell Martin basically lost faith in everything that he'd been trying to do. He didn't pick any of our recognised strikers, which, he picked Maxwell Cornet to start the game. We had Devlin and Fernandez as false nines, no one up front. That was the game where everything was horrendous, and it was also the first game where we were 3-0 down, got back to 3-1, and then did nothing except pass the ball around. Didn't put a ball in the box, didn't do anything, and that to me was the game where I thought Russell Martin's gone. It took a few games to realise, you don't want to say sack the manager after 6 games, but looking back now, that they should have done after 6 games. Very difficult to make that decision after that amount of time, but he totally lost it in that game. He also totally lost it in the Leicester game. He made some horrendous substitutions in that game. And as Steve has said, that Bournemouth away game, I was absolutely spitting feathers after that. That was horrific.
It must be one of the toughest years you've had, Alfie, having to write about this every bloody week. I mean, we choose to go and we pay our money to turn up. But you've been up and down the country, haven't you? You've been to all the games and you're so intrinsically involved with it. It must be really difficult, and it must have been a really tough one for you this year. Yeah,
obviously, I actually just tweeted before the game, just a message before the pod, just a message of thanks to everybody because, not to my life story, but I did grow up following Twitter updates and stuff, and it looked like the coolest job in the world. So I'm really glad that I can do it. And it has been terrible. But you make the point of, you choose to go, but you also pay to go. So I don't. So, it's not. It's not the same. I don't feel sorry for me. You know what I mean, by any means. It has been obviously difficult, and the thing that's been difficult is how much it tests relationships and stuff like that, which are, it is a new experience for me in the job. I try and get on with everybody and try and be fair and honest, but over the course of the year, it tests that, and people don't want to be criticised and all this sort of stuff. That's hard. That's hard, and I don't mind putting in the hours up and down the country to get there because it's the best job in the world that I'm capable of doing. I'd love to play up front, obviously, but I'm terrible, so I have to do this instead. And it is, I'm looking forward to next season for that reason, because I had so much fun in the Championship. We all did, didn't we? Going to these away games and scoring late winners, sometimes winning heavily. And I think we'll have that again in the Championship. It's been unbelievably tough. And Bournemouth away would have been my one as well, because I felt that Bournemouth away was the one where it started to get a bit frosty at the training ground and things like that. And I wrote a piece after that match about I felt Russell Martin was just making too many changes to his team, sort of too many tactical tweaks, too many sort of personnel coming in and out. And I think that's probably something that summarised a lot of the start of the season as well, is just like no real clarity. I guess if you want a highlight, or a low light rather, those 2 games, 15 and 16, where they got smashed by Chelsea and obviously Spurs. The atmosphere in the ground at that time, was really tough. And then it didn't really get any better really at any point this season. So yeah, it's been a really long year, and hopefully it's better next time. Because
you need a bit of time off. Yeah, I do want to. I think we will come back to the whole, who comes in, who goes. Once we get the retain list and we get a better idea, so we'll probably end up getting together in a couple of weeks' time and just chatting through that, because obviously there's some loan players that are going to be coming back as well. I do just want to ask you, what is the one, like I did with Franny there, just what's the positive to take forward? Because there's got to be a few things that have come out this season.
Well, I think the positive right now is that the people at the top are. Yeah, but yeah, right now that's a relief, obviously. But I think the positive is that there's people in charge now who if you look at the first season under the Sport Republic, whoever it was making decisions, Rasmus Ankerson, Henrik Kraft, and whoever, they did the same mistake. They sacked the manager, they brought somebody into play a completely different way. They realised the players couldn't do it. They sacked them, went back. We did that this season. Sacked the manager, brought in Ivan Juric. The players couldn't play his way. They sacked him and went back to a caretaker again. And the season in the Championship, they had somebody else in charge. They made largely sensible decisions. Got printed on a 20 million quid budget. Neither of the two players they signed actually played. It was all done on loans and stuff. And it finally looks like now they've got somebody in who's been here for 2 months, but he's made a whole new sort of technical team appointment. He's got a new manager in. We've got somebody who we can look at and say, right, well, he's making the decisions, and we can back him and hope it goes well. Obviously, the jury's still out whether it goes well or not, because we've got a whole new season. But I just feel like we've got somebody in charge who's making decisions, rather than this sort of grey area of we don't know who's doing what, and people with no experience are taking on those roles.
And they did make the changes. They did make the changes early enough, I suppose, Steve, as well, didn't they? That was the thing. We were talking about Sport Republic taking some ownership of this, and actually, to be fair to him, they did start to make the changes, and they put the structure in place. So that's it's a really good point. They're
running out of time though. This is it. I mean, Franny Benali said in the clip that this is a massissive appointment for them, and we have to know it is a huge.
They're out of credit.
They're out of credit completely. Yeah. They got us up, and we all said thanks for that. And then they made the exact same mistakes again, and ballsed it up again. So people won't be so forgiving this time. This one has to go well.
What are you looking forward to next season, Steve? Any of the away trips?
Wrexham will be interesting. Bearing in mind, I've stood in that away end with about 100 Sutton fans in the National League. It's going to be a very, very different experience when we go up there.
On the telly as well, I expect.
Quite possibly. I mean, Wrexham will have some early exposure, won't they? Also don't forget that the way the TV deal works now in the Championship, the first half of the season we'll know all of our TV fixtures.
Is that right? Nice one.
Yep, from basically a week or so after the fixtures are out. So we will know which ones we've got Saturday lunchtimes, probably lots, I reckon. Yeah. Friday nights, Sunday afternoons, those sort of things. So I think having a little bit of clarity on that helps. Premier League, I mean, they've once again they've been absolute garbage at sticking to their agreed schedule of fixture releases and TV changes and stuff. And hopefully, the EFL one worked fine by the sound of it this current season. So that'll be better for everybody. I think just having that clarity and knowledge sort of far enough in advance. In terms of individual games, I mean, Pompey's the one that people are obviously getting interested in. Frankly, I find as an away fan, the experience of going to Fratton Park is a pain in the arse.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, let's be honest, it's going to be a bubble trip, isn't it? Even though bubble trips seem to more or less not be a thing anymore, Hampshire Police will absolutely want it to be a bubble trip.
They've got a £250,000 budget to police the 2 Pompey games.
But I mean, that sounds light. That sounds quite light to me. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what previous games have cost to police, so it's difficult to know whether that's a lot or not. But the whole thing of
it wasn't a bubble trip last time, was it?
No, that's what I was going to say. When we beat them 4-0.
The midweek cup game wasn't, because it was obviously the game. The tie was drawn at 3 weeks' notice. And a midweek game, it's just so much harder to do those trips, because if you're having to
Commuter.
get to Southampton on public transport and then get on the bus to go down, get on the bus to come back, you're getting back into Southampton after the last train's gone, the last bus has gone, and you've got no way of getting home. And that's kind of the thing for me, is that as someone who doesn't live in Southampton anymore, getting to that cup game was easy for me. I could I drove down to Havant, parked at the station there, and got the train in from there, and nobody noticed, and it was fine. I just literally walked up Goldsmith Avenue and into the away end. But for a bubble trip, it's going to be a nightmare, because I'll have to get myself down to Southampton. We'll be on the bus, hang around, probably kept in the ground for an hour after the game, bus back out, and yeah, I mean we'll be back in Southampton probably 2-3 hours after the game's finished. It's a shame.
Counter argument is, yeah, that's a ball late, but liven up a little. It's Pompey. It'll be fun. Surely.
Will it?
Glenn,
Well,
Glenn,
of
what
course
are you
it'll be
looking
fun.
forward to next season? Just to wrap things up tonight, what are you thinking about for next season? What's the positive way forward?
There's a couple of things. Obvious one is no VAR.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
100%.
that in the Championship. I mean, that is worth mentioning
Until the
about this
playoff final.
season, because it didn't cause our relegation, but we had a little run of games, starting with that Leicester one. We then had, off the top of my head, Brighton, Arsenal, Liverpool, Wolves, where we had shocking decisions that definitely cost us points.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have had all this worst team ever rubbish, which was hanging over us until a couple of weeks ago. So I won't miss VAR. I will be looking for, 30 defeats. Wouldn't it be nice to be closer to 30 wins?
Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to being competitive in every game. Just to add my peneth about Portsmouth, it's an interesting one for me, because, as many people know, I kind of grew up there, and horrible thing. So a lot of my friends are Pompey fans, so it's good from that point
He always
of view.
says it quietly, doesn't he, when he talks about that?
Yeah, I know. It's like a mark of shame. So no, I'm looking forward to it from that point of view. The away trip I haven't done since we lost 1-0 in 2003. I want to say 2004. Yakubu scored. That was miserable.
I missed the first half an hour of that because of the train. The police held the train at Southampton for about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'll keep my memories to Steve Moran in 1984. Thank you very much. So so I mean, I'm looking forward to playing Portsmouth again. It'll be it's a game that's obviously got a lot of edge to it, and the atmosphere is completely different, and the nerves you get in the build up to that game are off the scale, and it just raises it above a normal game. And obviously, if you win, it's brilliant. If you lose, not so much. So so I'm looking forward to more or less everything about the new season. And
this is how they get you, Glenn. This is how they get you. This is how bad it's been, and we're all straight back in. We can't wait.
Of course it is, and it will also be my 50th year, I think. I went to my first game in 1976. So so it will encompass my 50 years. So hopefully we're up near the top of the league when that comes around.
Get that man a t-shirt. There's a couple of bits of admin just before we finish. Predictions League we've been running. A lot of people have been quite heavily invested in this. Congrats, others less so.
Not me.
I think you know where we're going with this, don't you? Alex Sheffield won the Patreon Predictions League with 38 points. Mike,
is that the second year in a row he's won it?
Claims second. That's a good shout, actually. Yeah, I'd have to check that. Mike Binks claimed our second place with 37 points, and Andy Robinson was third with 34. There are some prizes for the top three in the Patreon League, so give us a little DM. If we just called out your name, we'll sort you out with the prize. Randomly, producer Alex actually won the entire league somehow with 41 points. I don't know how that happened.
The guy who knows nothing about football.
We keep saying that, but clearly he does.
I mean, should we just retire now?
Chat GPT, I reckon.
He's sat there with the dice, just rolling the numbers.
In our little league, Alfie was second with 30 points. I was third with 23. Steve fourth with 22, and then bring up the rear, Glenn with 21 points. So, but you knew that was coming, I think. So that was just a bit of fun. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the predictions league. I'm sure we'll be doing that again next year. And the FPL, at the time of recording, Chris Fincher is currently first. Leo Kibbe is second, and Stephen Morrow is third. So we'll get some TSP merch prizes out to the three of you as well. So do drop a sort of DM, and we'll get those in the post for you. There is a lot of stuff that's going to be going on in the next few weeks. Obviously, with the manager coming in, there'll be a list of players that are going. There'll be those that are coming back, and there'll be some transfer business, I'm sure. So we will get together again, but it kind of feels like that's it for the regular pods this season. There'll be loads of content that continues online, of course, right throughout the summer. So make sure you follow Total Saints Podcast on all the social media platforms. Check out the website and the merch store as well. Totalsaints.co.uk is the website. And as I mentioned right at the start, we're also on Patreon. That's where you can support the podcast with your monthly contributions. Something you might want to do next season. Visit patreon.com/Total Saints Podcast. And each of the tiers comes with different perks, including shouts for patrons in our Francis Benali and our Mick Shannon tiers. So thank you to Dave Melton, Andy Hollis, Anthony Thompson, Gavin Ford, James Harron, Nicky Nicholson, Southampton NY, Drew Dyer and James Kibbe. They're in the Francis Benali tier. And also thanks to Colt Baker, Dave Ernsberger, Nick Hingston, Phil Cook, Nick Reed, Phil Horstrup, Matt Hall, Mark Littlewood, Mike Etheridge, James Bobin, John Bevan, and Liam Dempsey, who are in our Mick Shannon tier. Thank you as well to Paul Castle Associates and Steamtown Brewery for sponsoring TSP this season. Thank you to Steve, Alfie, and Glenn. Thank you for watching. Enjoy a break if you get one, and we will see you again next time.